Want some payback for his friend?
He ain't the only one.
Oh, you wasn't down with the cop no more.
I'll make an exception for Fame. Give me something. I can't take out stuff for them.
I'm back. I want to look like I never left.
So Famous is officially gone. If anybody had any doubts or some kind of hope because we didn't technically see a body, there's all the posts on social media, which to be honest with you guys, if you really wanted to, you can kind of counteract that with what they did with Unique in Season 3. But well and truly to move the storyline forward, for what we're about to see Kanan and Jukebox turn into, and for what we're about to see them do, Kanan turning from a pup into a wolf, closer to the character that we saw in Power, he does need to lose loved ones. Episode 6 will most likely be the confirmation for anybody who has doubts, because we are going to see Kanan and Juke really upset, but they're going to turn this pain in her into anger. They're going to be on the hunt for whoever killed Famous, and I do think that will be a hot topic for a couple of episodes, not just episode 6. But we've also got Unique finally coming out of the shadows. Rock is going to have to deal with Marvin killing Terry, and also a new business deal with the Afghans and the Italians. They're definitely going to begin to ramp things up, and I'm sure it's going to be another great episode with great storytelling, writing, and the usual acting from the likes of Patina Miller, London Brown, Joey Badass, and everybody else. But with that being said, let's start with the title and synopsis, and then we'll dive deep into these exclusive images. Now the title of episode 6 is The Price of Fame. Again, no explanation needed. And the synopsis reads, Rock tries to overcome Marvin's poor judgment. Kanan recruits Jukebox to help him get justice for his friend. Unique assembles the final pieces of his plan. Now of course, we definitely have to start with the aftermath of Famous's death. We got Kanan's reaction towards the end of 405, and he really was distraught. Going into 406, he's going to feel the exact same. The death of his best friend still hasn't quite sunk in. And we've got him at Cafe Vu, probably looking at the stage that Famous used to love being on. He also kind of looks lost for words sitting next to Juke, and he really is taking the death of Famous quite hard. In the background, you can also make out someone holding a small picture of Famous, so maybe there's a little memorial or a gathering at Cafe Vu, and if that is the case, maybe we also see the Figueroa family, maybe we see Jess's reaction and also Jessica popping back up. Now we haven't seen Jukebox's reaction just yet, but we're probably going to get it early in 406. I don't think her reaction is going to be similar to Kanan's, because this is someone who's felt a lot of death already. In 404, she pulled the trigger and she got her first kill. This is someone who the older Kanan said is dead inside already. She's used to the pain and she's used to the death that Kanan is just beginning to feel. But just because she probably won't show it emotionally like Kanan, it doesn't mean she won't be hurting as well. She definitely will. Now just a quick side note on Jukebox. I did read a lot of people's comments where many believe that Jukebox could have felt Famous, but that really doesn't make sense. I didn't mention Jukebox in the Who Did It breakdown, which is definitely worth a watch. We rule out characters such as Lou, Detective Howard, and Ronnie based on the timeline. But I never mentioned Juke because I didn't even think people would even consider Juke. I mean, very similar to Ronnie and Detective Howard, the timeline just doesn't add up for Jukebox to have killed Famous, and they've already showed us her first kill at the end of 404. And for Famous's body to be in that particular state, that would have been left there for months, and we know Jukebox was in basic training. So definitely isn't Juke in my opinion. But at Cafe Vu, the hot topic will definitely be Kanan wanting revenge, finding answers in terms of who killed Famous, but he isn't the only one.
He's gonna want some payback for his friend.
He ain't the only one.
Oh, you wasn't down with the cop no more.
I'll make an exception for Fame.
Lou definitely wants revenge as well. Let's remember, this is someone who spent a lot of time with Famous throughout seasons 1 to 3. He put in a lot of effort to try and help this kid stay on the right path. At times, he was quite hard on Famous, but only because Lou wanted the best for him. He didn't want him to waste his talent, he wanted to keep him off the streets and in the studio. We're also going to see him making an exception for Fame, so let's see what moves Lou makes, because at the same time, he is someone who's trying to stay on the right path himself. We've got him in one of his support group meetings, which I do think is quite normal post-rehab, but I'm sure he's got a lot to get off his chest because of the death of Famous, which is technically his first real test and hiccup since he got back to Queens. Everything's been going pretty smooth, or smooth as it can be, because we know life definitely has its ups and downs, and it can slap you when you least expect it, and Famous's death really was a slap in the face. I do think deep down he definitely knew, turning off the radio when 411 was playing, his demeanour, the way he was talking, I definitely think he feared the worst. But let's see how he reacts, because he needs to be very careful, he doesn't spiral out of control and go down the same path he went down before. But let's move on to Jukebox and Kanan's first move. Now I'm saying first move because I don't think it's going to be the only one. We know we're going to see them at the basketball court, guns in hands, holding these guys at gunpoint, which I do believe has to be Freddy's crew. It's the most logical people to go to and question first, which is what we went through in my Who Did It breakdown. They'll definitely be on the list of who killed Famous. However, I don't think they're going to get the answers they're looking for in episode 406. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of get sent from one person to another, because the streets are going to come up with all sorts of rumours. Nobody's going to know anything, fake rumours will spread, but Juke and Kanan are going to have to kind of separate the truth from the lies. But I wouldn't be surprised to see this rumble on for at least an episode or two as a minimum. Now, in terms of Rock and her organisation, we know Marvin made a huge mistake by killing Terry, so we're definitely going to see Rock laying into Marvin for that particular mistake, because now they're left to kind of deal with just David. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we're definitely going to find out. But this part of Rock's operation is really important. If David doesn't stay on top, then Rock's product will just continue collecting more dust, because it's not going to make its way to the Chinese restaurants. So, speaking of the Chinese restaurants, we've got Rock speaking to Erwin once again, possibly trying to calm him down and getting back to business as usual, but I really do think it's just damage limitation at this point for Rock. She's hired regular people to conduct her street level operation, just how Ghost and Tommy used to have careers back in Power. We all heard Ghost mention that their organisation was built for finesse. You have regular people blending in with society to avoid law enforcement, and it really was clever and it did work. However, the problem is when you have these regular people in these situations, which they're not made for, that's when they're going to struggle and have doubts. No doubt, Erwin will probably have doubts again, but he is married to Rock in terms of business, so Marvin's mistakes isn't the only thing that she's going to have to deal with. Now on that note, we also have to remember he made a side deal with Stefano and Ellie Tyler to take over the operation in Corona. That was back in episode 404. We never saw anything kind of follow on in episode 405 in terms of how that particular business is going, so I am definitely expecting Marvin to pay Ellie Tyler a visit, because he did mention he is also taking a percentage. My early prediction around that whole situation after what went down in episode 404 was that it definitely won't end well, that's for sure. But how this piece of business has been in Stefano's family for many years, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being in the hands of Unique and potentially Phil Russo. So let's see how this unfolds over the next couple of episodes. Now we've also got Rock making her deal with Stefano and her fees, and this meeting is real important because Rock needs all the big players to play ball for him to supply his heroin to Rock, who in turn will be supplying Queens. I'm sure she'll definitely come to an arrangement and things will probably go as smooth as they probably can do in this meeting between Stefano and her fees, but lurking in the shadows making moves is Unique. We all know Unique made himself known to Quan towards the end of episode 405, but in episode 406 he's going to be approaching Phil Russo once again. He's going to be in a much stronger position than he was before, because he's now got a crew behind him. So, I'm sure Phil Russo will turn around and potentially back him in this war against Rock and Stefano, but these Italians are real slimy. As I mentioned before, they don't like to get their own hands dirty, and it really is complicated with the Italian crime families. I don't think Phil Russo will want to get anywhere near Unique's war, but he'll damn sure use him to bring down Stefano and use him as a pawn. Now, in terms of Unique and his mental state, he's finally going to take off that hoodie that he's been wearing for 6 months. He's going to get some brand new chains and jewelry and get back to his old flashy ways. And I think we're probably moments away from him revealing himself to Rock. I'm not sure if it's going to happen in episode 406, but we are getting to that stage of the season where I do want to see it happen. I want to see how Rock handles Unique being back, knowing that he's back, knowing that he was the one who was causing all this chaos for her organisation. She really won't know what's hit her, that's for sure. And well, if Lou's down to get revenge for Famous and make an exception for that, I'm sure he's going to make an exception for when his sister needs help, because she definitely will. But that's something I'm sure will play out over the next few episodes, probably not in episode 6. But that's a breakdown and a quick preview of all things episode 6 based on these exclusive images, and no doubt we're probably in for yet another good one. We'll probably see Juke and Kanan on a mission, Unique coming out of the shadows, Rock making her moves, but also dealing with the aftermath of one of Marvin's mistakes, emphasis on just one, because there are a few others, that's for sure. But let me know your thoughts and predictions down below in the comment section, and I will catch up with you guys as usual in my breakdown for episode 6. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.